Hello. Thanks for the intro. How's everybody doing today? I know you guys can't hear me, so I hope that you're laughing. Let me just set up my screen share here. Give me 1 second. And I'm hoping that you guys could all see my screen. So let's get started. So, right, building web apps with WordPress. WordPress as an application framework. So, who am I? My name is Brian Messenlehner, pronounced Messenlehner, and as you can tell by my slide here, I love WordPress. You could find me on Twitter at @bmess. So, a little bit about myself. I got started with software development when I was a 4067 for the United States Marine Corps. That MOS translates to computer programmer. So I was a POG. I wasn't a grunt for the Marines, and my job was actually to build logistical web systems, utilizing at the time mostly Microsoft technologies. We started off with classic ASP, then moved over to the .NET framework when that came out. A little bit of code fusion.
Brian, we're not seeing your screen share. Did you perhaps click the launch play button in the corner?
I thought I did. Let me.
Folks that are currently joining us, our webcast has just started, and we're getting our screen share working here. And just to let you know, if you do have questions for Brian during the presentation, open your group chat widget, type it in, send it in, and we'll take as many as we have time for. Okay, it looks like we see your screen now. Back to you, Brian.
Thanks. Sorry about that. So yeah, so as you can see from my screen here, I love WordPress. And what I was just talking about was programming for the United States Marine Corps for Logistics Command. We would build a lot of systems from the ground up, building out the whole database schema, building out all the files, supporting files, programming everything in .NET, Cold Fusion, storing all the data in mostly SQL Server databases and some Oracle databases. And that's how I really got started in programming. About 2007 is when I switched over to the open source world with PHP, MySQL database, and started getting involved with some open source projects like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, Magento, and stuff like that. So, next slide. I'm the co-author of Building Web Apps with WordPress. As you can see, we love WordPress, and you could get to the website by bwawwp.com. That stands for Building Web Apps with WordPress. Or check us out on Twitter at bwawwp. So my other co-author of this book is Jason Coleman. You may know him as the guy from Stranger Studios or the WordPress Wrapper. On a little side note, if you guys do a Google search for WordPress Wrapper, you'll see him, and he's got some mad rap skills. But yeah, obviously I couldn't have wrote this book without him or Matt Mullenweg, so thanks to both those guys. So I'm also the co-founder of Web Dev Studios. Like I was saying before, I started off programming in the Marines, and that's where I met my first business partner, Brad Williams. We worked together, and we lived in a small room, probably like 10 by 10 feet, so we know each other pretty well. We actually started Web Dev Studios while we were still in the Marines, building, doing freelance work on the side, outside the base. And we started off with some small websites for like some car dealerships. We did a morning radio show out of Myrtle Beach, just some small things. But we always had this vision of, doing Web Dev Studios full-time one day. But of course, we were, playing war and stuff when the Iraqi war kicked off, and we got deployed overseas to support the logistics systems that we built and maintained. So, Web Dev had to take a back seat then. But when President Bush landed on the aircraft carrier and said, mission accomplished, the war was over, most of the Marines that we were working with got to go home. And that's when Brad and I, our contract ended. We got out of the Marine Corps. We each went our separate ways. I went back to New Jersey and worked at a law firm specializing in insurance fraud. I was still building stuff with .NET, using my own recycled code libraries to build stuff from the ground up. I think around 2006, Brad called me. He was working in Indianapolis for batteries.com, and we still had always maintained a good friendship and, had done some freelance work on the side. But he said that his company just got bought out, and he wanted to jump ship and start web dev full time. So I flew out to Indiana, packed up his whole house in a U-Haul truck. We moved him out to Jersey, and we started up Web Dev Studios, full time, legit, in New Jersey in 2007. We were still building stuff from the ground up with .NET, but we had just started getting into the open source world at that time, specifically WordPress with some blogs. So we wanted to kind of shift our focus over to open source. We started taking on a lot of jobs with Drupal at the time. WordPress wasn't as developed as it is now. And once WordPress came out with version 3.0 with custom post types specifically, in coordination with that and seeing that a lot of our leads generated on our contact form were people that were mostly looking for WordPress, we decided to make Web Dev Studios a WordPress-only development shop. In 2013, we took on Lisa Saban-Wilson as a partner with Web Dev, and the idea behind that was both Brad and I were good developers. We always had designers on staff. Anything that me and Brad built would function great. It would do really cool things, but it was really ugly. So we needed some designers. Another thing was that we didn't know if any of our designers were pulling a fast one on us because we're not designers. So that's where Lisa kind of came in, and she could throw the BS flag when she needs to. So I'm also the co-founder of AppPresser. It's a new framework for WordPress built with WordPress and another framework called PhoneGap, which basically enables people to build native mobile apps with WordPress. So we'll talk about this a little later too. So what is a web application framework? A web application framework is a software that is designed to support the development of dynamic websites, web applications, web services, and web resources. You could build dynamic websites, web applications, web services, and web resources with WordPress. Of course you can. So WordPress is an application framework. What can you make? Well, everybody knows with WordPress you could generally make blogs, basic websites, content management systems, e-commerce solutions, mobile app hybrids, which we'll touch on a little bit later, social networks, company intranets. You can make coffee, and I'll tell you how later with AppPresser. And, of course, you can make money, which is probably everybody's favorite. Why use WordPress? Well, number one, it's open source, so it's free. It has thousands of themes and plugins to extend the functionality and has a great supportive community. It's popular. 20%, or I don't know if this is exact stat right now, but it's close to 20% of all websites on the internet use WordPress. That's pretty impressive. It's secure. Just don't make your password. It's really battle tested. If you think that 20% of all the websites on the internet are using WordPress, then you could bet that a lot of people have tried to hack WordPress, and it's pretty secure. It's extendable. The source code is laced with hooks you could use in your custom theme or plugin. So before I dive into hooks, I was thinking about how to do this presentation, and I thought it would be better. I probably won't be able to make everybody happy because there's probably some newbies in here. There's probably some more advanced people. So I thought I would really start at the beginning and walk through building an app from scratch. We only have an hour, so it's not going to have too many bells and whistles, but we'll build something cool that you can kind of get the idea of. So I'm going to switch over to WordPress.org, and I'm going to download WordPress. So I'm extracting the zip file, and I'm going to open a new Finder window, and I'm going to go to Websites, Let me change this old one here. So I'm going to create a new folder called School. In our example, we're going to make a school web application. Open that up. Grab my newest copy of WordPress, open that up, and I'm just going to select all these files and drag them here. So I'm going to build this out locally. Most of you are probably used to building your websites on a hosting server. That's probably a very important decision, choosing the host to go with. I would recommend hosting companies like WP Engine and SiteGround. They have a lot of good optimization techniques, and they like to cache everything, which we'll go over that in a little while too. So that's most everybody's going to be running WordPress on a LAMP stack, Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. To run this locally on my Mac, I'm using MAMP, which stands for Mac, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. And for those of you running Windows, if you would like to build your applications locally, you would install WAMP. Now, if you do a Google search for any one of these, then it brings it right up. So here's how you would install MAMP, and if you want to install WAMP, here's how you would install WAMP. Great. So I'm going to make sure that my MAMP database and Apache server is start up, which it is. And I'm going to go to localhost/school. Now, most of you probably already have seen this screen. It's the default installation screen for WordPress, so we're going to create a configuration file. It's saying basically that we need a database to connect to, database username, password, host, table prefix. So let's do that. So right now I'm going to open up MySQL Workbench. There's some other tools. Some of you are probably used to PHPMyAdmin on your web host for accessing and managing your databases. I prefer to use MySQL Workbench while working locally and remotely. The host gives us remote access. So I'm going to create a new database called School from that. So if I refresh this, you'll notice we have a new database, School, but there's nothing in it. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to put in my database credentials here. I know my database name is School. I know the default settings in MAMP, the username is root and the password is root. Please don't ever, if your username and password, your database is root on your web server, definitely make sure you change that. Database host, you can usually leave this as localhost unless you're hosting your database on a separate server. And table prefix, the default is WP underscore, but it's always good to change this for security reasons. Say some kind of hacked plugin or something is looking, in your database and trying to figure out where to pull data from. Typically, they're going to look for WP underscore table name. So let's change this to something else. Submit. All right, Sparky, you did it. Run the install. So this is just going to be a local school example. Username, new versions of WordPress, it used to show you admin here. It's a good idea to use something unique for your admin usernames. Guessing if a bot or somebody trying to hack your site is, trying to log into your site, most cases that the username is admin, it's half the battle is already won right there. All they have to do is figure out your password. So I'm going to copy and paste a secure password that I have into here. And you can see that the password meter is strong. What you don't want is something like, say, password. Right? It may be something easy. You may have a password that you like to use for everything. That's your dog's name or you and your wife's anniversary or your kids' names. Probably shouldn't do that. Come up with something very unique. If you don't, you're going to wish you had later if you get hacked. Uncheck this to allow search engines to index the site because I'm just running this here locally. So I'm going to run the install success. Now I can log in with the password. Remember me. So now we're at the back end of WordPress. So I want to do a quick overview of what just happened there. We installed, we copied over the WordPress files. We installed the database, but what exactly happened? So first, I'm going to open up Sublime Text, the editor I like to use, and I'm going to open up the school WordPress project. So these are the default files that come with WordPress. So WP-admin, right? This is everything that's happening in the admin dashboard. So if I were to say go to posts, it would be wp-admin/edit.php. Back on here, I could find that file right here, edit.php. Number one rule of thumb, do not hack core files. So you never want to hack anything that's in this WP-admin directory or anything that's in this WP includes directory or any of these files, except for the WP config file. And we'll go over this in a little bit more detail in a couple minutes. Inside your WP content folder is where you have your plugins directory, where all your WordPress plugins can be installed, and your themes directory, which all of your themes can be installed. You could also create a directory called MU, which stands for must use. Oops, I put it in the wrong directory there. It's supposed to go in your plugins. So inside of plugins, I'll create a new folder, call it MU. Now, any scripts that I have inside this MU folder are going to run automatically. You don't have to, as an admin, you don't have to activate those plugins. All right, so that's kind of the basic default directory structure of WordPress. Now let's go back and look at the database. If I refresh this, I should see all my tables now. And you can see that we have a prefix called change, which isn't the default WP prefix that usually every WordPress site is. And that's good for security. So let's go back to the slide now. And let's talk about hooks. So one of the best things that makes WordPress an application framework is hooks and filters. Now, action hooks, you can insert your code wherever there is available do action in the code. So let's do a quick search inside of WordPress. So this whole directory here, we're going to find in folder, and we're going to look for do action. And this is going to return all the files that have a do action. So anywhere where there's a do action here, this is a hook. And anywhere there's a hook, we could basically inject our own function and run whatever code that we want to run. So in this little example right here, we're utilizing the do action hook for init, and we're saying add action init. Right? We're calling this hook, and then we're referencing our own function, WDS function. So we would have our own function then, function WS function, and we're just going to echo hi people and exit. So what would happen if you ran this would be whenever the code is running and it gets to this init hook, it's going to say hi people and it's going to exit. So there's also filter hooks, right? And with a filter hook, you could basically hijack any data that are wrapped in applied filters. So if we look for applied filters in our code, find in folder, apply filters, search it. Here's all the filters in default WordPress install that we have access to. Now filters are great for, say, maybe a drop-down box, and the options in that drop-down box you could apply filters to. In this example, if you want to add a new option to the drop-down box, you would apply a filter and add whatever options you wanted. In this example, we're just utilizing the content filter, and we're basically, we're calling out this filter. We're saying to use WDS function, call this function. We're saying that the priority of this is 1. So if you have other other plugins use, calling the same function, this one would take a higher precedence. You could also change that to say, 10 if you wanted, or 99 if you wanted to make sure that this one ran last. And this last argument is the number of arguments that you're passing into the function itself. So 1 would be corresponding with this content argument. So basically, we're saying wherever this filter happens, the content, we're running this WDS function, and we're appending hi people to the end of that content, and we're returning that content. So if you ran this on every single post or page that's created, the last thing on the content would be hi people. So manage users, right? So what application framework would you not be able to manage users with? Well, with WordPress, you certainly can. You have basic user data, login, email, password that's encrypted, and you also have metadata. So with metadata, you could append an infinite amount of data to any particular user. You also have custom roles, so you could define custom user roles and capabilities so that these group of users can do certain tasks while these other users can't. Some helper functions around this include WP insert user, WP update user, get users, get user data, WP delete user, and for the metadata, add user meta, update user meta, get user meta, and delete user meta. Now, if we go back to the database, you'll see that we have these tables here, right? Your users and your user meta. So if we go back to our app and we go to the users table, the users page, I'll go to add a new user. Let's create a new user called Brian with Brian at AppPresser as an email. Fill this information out. My password for right now, I'm just going to make it something very simple. But don't do that. If you see this as very weak, you want to make it say strong. I'm not going to send it. I just reset it. I'm going to make him an administrator. So there is this new user that I just created called Brian. If we go back and look at the database and I refresh this table, select the rows, here is Brian, the one I just created, right? Basic information. Here's the user meta table, and here is, you see user ID 2. There's my first name, the last name I created, the nickname, some other basic user metadata. So user meta can just keep on going and going forever. So back to the slide. So we also have managing posts, right? So every content in WordPress, every piece of content is a post, really. As far as posts, pages, they're both posts. Basic post data would be title, content, author, etc. And then just like the user meta table, you also have the post meta table, and you could append an infinite amount of post metadata here. So if we go to our app and we go to posts, and a lot of you are probably familiar with this already. I'm going to add a new post called test post. I'm also going to come up here to screen options and make sure that I have all these other options enabled. Right, so I'm going to make a new post called test. I'm going to come down. I'm going to give it a new category. I'm going to give it another category called subcat and connect it to the parent category of testcat. All right, hierarchical categories. I'm also going to create a tag called test. So down here in your custom fields, this is actually your post metadata here. So if I wanted to create something, I would say, let's give it a meta key of test meta key, right? And this is going to be test meta value. Add that custom field, publish this post. If I go back and look at the database in the change post table, I'll see here is the post that I just created, test post. And if I look at the post meta table, here is that test meta key and the test meta value. So you can kind of see with the custom fields in WordPress posts, you could add as many as your heart desires. So we also have pages, which is kind of more your static content. Your post is more of your blog. Pages is also a post type. If we actually go look in the database at the post table and we say select distinct post type from school change posts, run this. Oops, it would help if I spelled that right. So you can see I have page, post, and revision. There's some other default ones that aren't showing up yet, probably because there isn't any that exist, and that's attachments and menu items. So another thing besides hooks that makes WordPress a very usable web application framework is definitely custom post types and taxonomies. Back in when WordPress 3.0 came out, or prior to that, we were still using Drupal for most of our projects, and this is what really changed our mind. So you know the default ones that come with WordPress, pages, posts. So categories and tags are just taxonomies that come packaged with WordPress. So you could actually create your own by using this function, register post type, and you can create your own taxonomies by register taxonomy. And you could create a post type called cars, where you could add cars in there if we were building an application for a car dealership, and you could add custom taxonomy or categories basically for make, model, year, and color. And we'll show you a better example of this in a little bit. So make it faster. Cream, right? Everybody likes Wu-Tang Clan. So cache rules everything around me. Plugins, there's some good caching plugins out there, W3 Total Cache, WP Super Cache, if you want to utilize those. There's some hosting platforms like WP Engine and SiteGround that have great caching systems for the WordPress clients. Transients. Transients are very important. They can really help optimize your site. And we'll cover that in a couple minutes too. CDN, Content Delivery Network. So basically you would use a CDN to serve up your JavaScript files, your CSS files, all your images. And there's a couple of sites you can check out if you want to, MaxCDN, Photon, or Cloudflare. So here's an example of transients, right? So say you had a home page on your theme and you had different boxes for different categories, and you were basically running a WP query for each of those categories to bring out maybe 5 to 10 posts for each of those categories. So you would have a query that probably looks something like this for each one, category featured or category news or whatever your categories were. So each time that's running, each time somebody hits your website, your homepage, it's going to go out to the database and query the database and grab all that stuff. So and display it to the browser. So you could utilize transients to store all that information. So basically, query equals get transient, WDS query. If the transient's empty, then we'll run our queries that we need to run, right? Set them to query, and we'll set transient WDS query to query, and we'll set it to expire in 1 day, right? So the first time that somebody hits your homepage, it's going to go hit the database, grab all that stuff, store it in cache in a transient. Going forward for the rest of that day, once until 24 hours has passed, it'll serve up. It's just going to have to query one table, the WP options table, and get this WDS query and return that. So you could either set it to expire automatically based on any time period that you want, or you could delete the transient. So we talked about hooks before, so you could do a hook on any time you save a post or publish a post. You could hook into that and delete this transient WDS query. So if you were adding a new post that was in the featured category, you would want that to show up on the home page. So this would happen then at that point. WordPress Multisite. WordPress Multisite, for those of you that haven't used it yet, is awesome for building big networks or social networks. First of all, a lot of people will set up WordPress websites, and they'll do a fresh install every single time for a new client, right? New database, new set of files. So the best feature of WordPress Multisite is that WordPress Multisite comes kind of shipped with WordPress. You just have to turn it on. But you have shared database. So all your databases is all your tables for all of your websites, all your WordPress websites are all in one database, which is great. And it's also shared source files. So if you need to update a particular plugin or a theme or WordPress itself, you do it one time and it updates across your network. Now, when you're registering a multi-site network, you could register either subdomains or subdirectories. So say, you had a social network and you were giving all of your users on that site their own subsite. So you would probably go with subdirectory, right? That way you can kind of capitalize on the subdirectory with SEO and keep them part of your overall network. Or you could do subdomains, and it could be whatever subsite.webapp.com. So each site in the database creates a new set of tables with an ID for that site. So when you create a new site in multi-site, it gives an ID number, and it duplicates the necessary WordPress tables with that same ID number as a prefix. The only table, or one of the only tables that it doesn't duplicate is the users table, because WordPress shares the users table across the network. It used to be called WordPress Multi-User, and they changed it to multi-site. Some of the more powerful plugins for running on WordPress Multisite are definitely the domain mapping plugin. So you could basically map any domain name you want to any subdomain. And the blog copier. So if you have a network of sites and all the sites are kind of similar, you could utilize this blog copier plugin to basically set up one template site. So you have like a site exactly how you want it, your widgets configured how you want it, some default content how you want it. And to make a copy of that site, you would just go, literally click two buttons, hit copy, and it would copy that template site over and launch a brand new site. So that's pretty powerful. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch back over to here, and we're going to kind of just, shoot through. We went over posts a little bit, categories and tags. Those are taxonomies that come shipped with WordPress. Your media library. So if we wanted to make a new post, let's go back to this test post. I could add media, select files to upload. I'll upload this picture here, insert it into post. I could also set a featured image. Boom, that image is set to featured, and update it. Your pages, like we were talking about before, is more your static content, your about us, stuff that really isn't going to change too much. Comments. So if I went to the front end for this test post, you would see that I have this comment box. So I'll leave a little comment there. And just so you guys know that what's happening on the back end, back on this, first of all, if I refresh this page, you'll see we have another post type called attachment. But also, if I go to my comments table and select those rows, I'll see the comment that I just made, hi. The comments table also has a comment meta table associated with it. So, you may come across custom plugins that want to extend what comments does out of the box and, append additional comment meta to comments. So we have appearance. You could choose what themes you want to use. Definitely, if you're using a multi-site network, we would recommend using a theme framework with child themes. That way, if you need to basically push out an update to all the sites on your network at the same time, you can utilize hooks that are embedded in that theme framework to do so. Plugins, we're going to install a couple plugins in a few minutes here. We went over users already. Tools, you could basically import or export WordPress. If I do the export, I could, update or export any categories. Let's say test cat for me as the author between dates, and it downloads a pretty standard XML file which you could import into other WordPress sites. Then you have your general settings. I'm going to make it so anybody can register. We'll set the default user role as a subscriber. Some other settings here. Most of you probably already are familiar with these. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to install a multi-site network. So the first thing that you'd want to do, let's say, is Google WordPress Multisite. First link, POW, come down. Right, we're going to open up this WP config file that we talked about earlier. One of the only files that you really ever want to change, besides stuff that's inside of plugins, inside your WP content directory. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say WP allow multi-site equals true. So back here, when I refresh under Tools, you'll now see Network Setup, and I'm going to say my network title is Local School Site. Email address sounds good. So I'm going to copy this over now into my WP config file. Define multi-site equals true, subdomain install equals false, so we're doing subdirectories. Domain current site localhost, path to current site equals school, site ID current site 1, and blog ID current site 1. Those are the top level site. So now I'm going to go to copy this to my htaccess file. Okay, for whatever reason, I can't see that there, so I know if I go to, let's see, FileZilla, and I can get to the htaccess through here. Oops. I'm going to overwrite this stuff. Save it, close it. Go back to here. Now if I log in again, password feels empty. No, it's not. So I'm going to put in my secure password. Remember me. I'm going to log in. What happened there? Oh, you know what? Yeah, that was right. Oh, I probably didn't save my WP config file. I didn't. So make sure you save your file after you change it. Now if I go to log in, you should see this new menu at the top, My Sites, and I have Network Admin. So if I go to my Network Admin dashboard, and you could always tell that you're on the Network Admin by looking at the URL. If it's, typically it would be /wp-admin, but if there's a /network at the end, then you're logged into the multi-site network. So from this right here, I can actually create a new site by a couple clicks. So let's say we want to create one for Mrs. Johnson. So if I go back to my sites menu, you'll see that we have a new site called Mrs. Johnson. And if I visit that on the front end, here it is. If I go to the back end, you'll see here it is, school/Mrs. Johnson /WP-admin. If I go to post, you'll see that this is, a blank WordPress site. So let's go back and look at the database. If I refresh my database, I'll now see all these fields or all these tables here with a prefix of 2. So those are all the corresponding tables to the new network site that we created. Right? If you notice if I hover over this, or even if I go to edit, you'll see up here in the address bar that this is site ID 2. So from here, I could actually manage the users that are set up on this particular site, the themes, and all the individual settings as an administrator. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to install a couple plugins. So let's actually, before I do that, let's talk about security a little bit, because security is really important too. So number 1 rule, update frequently. Right? If your WordPress install is out of date and it says upgrade now, make a backup of it and upgrade it. You can look at the release notes and see if there were security updates. Sometimes they are, and it's important to update them. Change the default WP prefix, which we already kind of went over. Don't use the username admin, which we went over. Use a strong password, which we went over. So one of the things inside WordPress that is convenient sometimes, but really bad to use. So if I go back to my local school, back to the dashboard, if I go to appearance, it's not there because I'm using multi-site. But usually you could edit all the themes and the plugins real time in the browser. So there's a little snippet of code. I'm going to paste it in here for my WP config file. Okay. Define disallow file edit equals true. So if you have this defined, then nobody will be able to edit themes or plugins in real time through the browser, which is never a good thing. Even though sometimes it is convenient, it's not. So another thing you could do, which is really cool, is you could actually move the WP content or WP config.php file up a directory. WordPress will automatically go up and look up a directory, or you could move it to a different folder altogether. So for here, I'm going to go back up a level, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it school config. Right? And inside of school config, I'm going to copy my WP config. Directly into there. Now on this WP config file, I'm going to delete everything in here and do an include that says that gives me the path directly to the school config folder and the config.php file. So I'm going to save that. And I do need to make sure that the file name is the same or it won't work. So let's just change this to config. So now save this, and fingers crossed, if I reset this, it should still work. But if anybody ever got access to your FTP account or tried to access WP config, all they would see is the path to where it goes, but hopefully they wouldn't have access to that particular path. There's also some good spam blocking plugins. One comes with WordPress, Kismet. There's also Backup Buddy by iTunes, which is a good one. There's also WordPress by Automatic, which is a good one. I hope that you went with a host that does daily backups, but it's a good idea to use these as well to basically save your data somewhere else. God forbid your hosting company crashed and you couldn't retrieve the backups, you would still have them if you were using one of these plugins. You could also scan. There's some scanning services available out there. A good one to use is Security. Basically, they'll scan your website periodically for any malware installed, and they have a cleanup service as well. So that's pretty good. One that I like to use a lot is limit login attempts. So if we go back to our network admin. Now we have to install plugins that we have multi-site set up at this level. I'll install limit login attempts. Install it. Network activate. So now you'll see if I log out, if I try to log in, it's going to tell me it should. Well, it's supposed to tell me that you have like 3 login attempts left, and then once you surpass those 3 login attempts, it blocks you for a certain amount of time. So go ahead and get that plugin installed and see if you could use it. So wow, we're really running out of time here. So a good plugin, let's talk about some more plugins here that are really good to use for building a quick and dirty application. We talked about registering custom post types. There's actually a plugin out there that allows you to do that through UI called Custom Post Type UI. Hey, look at that. It's built by Web Dev Studios. So I'm going to install that now. Network activate. And if I go back to an individual site, you'll see that I have this CPT UI menu, and I can come in here and add a new custom post type. Cars, cars. I could create that, and you'll see that it actually adds a new item here like this. So if I wanted to create a taxonomy name, I could do color, right? And color, and I'm going to attach this to the cars post type. All right, so I'll add that, and now you'll see I have this category basically called colors, and I could assign any terms that I want: blue, red, green. And if I go to add a car, I could do BMW. I could say whatever I want. Right now it added it as a tag. So if I were to go back to manage my taxonomies, I could edit this. I could say advanced options and hierarchical equals true, right? Let's update that. Let's go back to cars, back to this draft, and now here's all the colors that I want. Publish that. So another very cool plugin for building custom applications is definitely BuddyPress. So BuddyPress is like a social network in a box. Basically, a lot of features that you would see in any typical social network like Facebook, you kind of get with BuddyPress. So I'm going to install BuddyPress. I'm going to network activate it, and I'm going to see that I have set under the settings in my network admin, I have BuddyPress, and I can come in here and I can turn on all these different components: extended profiles, account settings, friend connections, private messaging, user groups, site tracking, save settings, pages. It actually, you can map any pages that you want to these different components. So I'll go ahead and just hit save there. And you can see back on the front end of my site, here's some groups. Here's a member's profile. I can come in here and change my profile information, change my avatar. I can post on my wall. Private messaging notifications. So if I had some friends on here, I could go ahead and do that. Actually, let me log in as Brian. Oh, there's the limit login attempts working. And this one was just password. So now if I go to members, I'll be listed there. I could add this guy as a friend. Back on the other one, if I refresh this page, I'll see a notification saying, hey, you have a friend request. I can go directly to it, and I could accept it. There's also a cool plugin called Commons in a Box. So if I went back to add new for plugins, search for Commons in a Box, search the plugins, I can install that. Network activate, and you'll see that it comes with these additional plugins for docs, a wiki, invite anyone, a lot of cool stuff that really extends BuddyPress. So we'll install those. And then last but not least, BuddyPress for forms. I'm really running out of time here, so I'm going to skip talking about BadgeOS, which is really cool. If you want to check that out, badgeos.org. And gamification is really cool. In the intro, we talked a little bit about the project that we did for the YMCA mobile hybrid app. That was all running on BadgeOS. Basically, people could walk into the Y. They could scan their ID card. It would log them into the barcode scanner would automatically log them into their WordPress account, and they could choose from a bunch of different badges and challenges that were already set up for the Y, like lifting weights or playing basketball, and these kids could unlock different challenges to do that. So last but not least, I wanted to talk about AppPress. Some of you may have heard about it. So I'm going to quickly install the plugins here. So if I go, let me just do this by dragging and dropping. So if I go to back to my websites, Apresser, and I want to take over Apresser, AppGeo, AppCamera, and I'm going to drop these in school, content, plugins, drop them in there. And then I'm also going to grab the Apresser theme, and I'm going to drop that in here. So now if I go to, say, one of these sites, if I go to plugins, the first thing I need to do is activate Apresser, and then some of these other extensions are dependent on Apresser being activated, so then I'll activate those. So now I have this Apresser menu down here at the bottom, and in here I have some options. I want my my default theme for the app to be the app theme. I want to create a new page, and I'm going to call it camera, and I'm going to put a shortcode in here for the app camera extension. Publish that. So back in Apresser, I'm going to make my default homepage be the camera. I'm going to quickly create a menu called main menu. I'm going to add camera to it, groups, members, activity, add this to the menu, save the menu. Back in Apresser, I'm going to go to set my main menu to the main menu, save the settings. You also have some app camera settings here and some geolocation settings. So from Apresser itself, you get the Apresser build files. which is what you need to edit to upload to PhoneGap Build. So if I go into these files, and I go to, let's do the iOS one, and open up a new project here. So the first thing you need to do is change your config.xml file to basically match your website's URL. So we have this set up here as localhost school app equals 1, and this tells it that's the app. So I'll run this in the emulator, and cross your fingers, we should see a basic app. There was some kind of conflict with these plugins, which we're working on. So let me just quickly go and network deactivate some of these plugins, so just so we could see the app working here. Let's rebuild it. And there is your basic app with a menu that is controlled from the menu in WordPress. It's forcing me to log in here. All right, so Brian and password. So now if I take a photo, it accesses the photos directly on the device, or I could take a photo but it won't work through the emulator. And I just uploaded that as a new post. So if I go back to here, to my local site, go to posts, here is the picture that I just uploaded. Don't mind it that it's a Drupal icon, please. It also uploads, inside that shortcode we had geolocation turned on, right? Geolocation equals true. So you'll notice that when this post came up from the app, it brought up longitude and latitude. So you could use that data to show a Google map or whatever type of map that you want for that particular post. I think we are really out of time here, so I'm going to try to answer some questions. See that there's quite a few in here. All right, let me show you one last thing about AppPresser, which is really cool. We're about to release this extension, and it has to do with post notifications. All right, so you can see on our dev site here that in the AppPresser menu, we have notifications turned on. So, and basically all this plugin is doing is creating a new custom post type called notifications. And any post here, building web apps with WordPress. So as soon as I publish this, let me turn my phone on. So as soon as I publish this, I should get a push notification to my device, and there it is. So another cool feature of this add-on is that it can connect to any other custom post type. So right here, we could come in here and create a new post. So test post, add whatever content you want in there. And you get this custom meta box, send a push notification when this post is published. So if I have that checked off and I publish, then it's going to send out a push notification, and I just got it. So that's pretty cool. We're working on a BuddyPress extension next that will integrate with push notifications. So any BuddyPress notifications that you get, you'll get a corresponding push notification. And then also it'll leverage BuddyPress groups. So people or group administrators can send out push notifications directly from the groups that they're in. I really ran out of time. I want to go over some more plugins, but you can kind of see, in less than an hour, we went from nothing to an app that you could upload photos to, geolocation data, send push notifications. So, that's really going to save a lot of people time and money. Utilizing WordPress, if you wanted to build a whole school web system from scratch, with .NET and SQL Server database, custom application from the ground up, it's going to take you a year, and it's going to cost, anywhere from, $80,000 to $1 million, depending on what you want to do. Utilizing an application framework like WordPress, you could definitely, cut that timeline way down, and you can cut the price way down. So without further ado, I'm going to blow through the rest of this. We talked about all this stuff. Here's just here's that Starbucks site we talked about using BuddyPress as an internal training system. Here's a BuddyPress in BuddyPress site we did with BadgeOS, talking about BadgeOS, a Facebook application, native Facebook application using WordPress, which is pretty cool. At the end of the day, it's just PHP, right? So you can't find something that you need as a WordPress plugin, look for a Joomla extension or look for a Drupal module that does what you need to do and cut out, copy and paste what you need out of there, make it fit, retrofit it for WordPress. There's also PHP libraries available out there. There's plenty of third-party APIs and services to integrate with. XML RPC is awesome for WordPress. You could utilize this in various WordPress sites or mobile applications for pushing data and pulling data to and from WordPress. We talked about hybrid mobile apps. We went over AppPresser. So what's next, right? Google Glass is pretty cool. You could actually take a photo by winking and post it to your WordPress blog by saying post to WordPress, and you could see comments as they come in, which is pretty cool. We're working on a project with a couple schools utilizing the Oculus Rift for virtual reality, and the idea is to teach, to immerse kids with special needs kids and kids with learning disabilities into this total learning environment with content all driven by WordPress. And integrated with BadgeOS so they can unlock achievements while they're doing whatever various tasks that they have to do, doing math stuff or history stuff. WordPress is really the perfect vehicle for content delivery. And now back to the questions. And I really am sorry that I didn't manage the time on that good enough. So let's see. Let's try to do at least one question. What offline and local storage of data options will there be with WordPress apps, if any? So, and I'm assuming that we're talking about mobile apps. So if we do a search on iTunes, and this is our first example of a local storage app built with AppPresser. So I'm going to search for the Dradcast. Dradcast iOS app. Where are you? Here you are. So this was the first, and this is just something that we're messing around with now. This is an extension probably that we're going to work on after push notifications and the BuddyPress one. But basically, if you want to go search iTunes for Dradcast, you could download this, and you could see how it stores all that data locally. An ideal situation would be a hybrid model where it would kind of download all of the HTML and JavaScript files and images necessary for the app locally, storing that in the app. When you're connected to the internet, it would go out and grab anything new and store that stuff down locally. I hope that sent you in the right direction. And I'll try to do one more. I don't know how far over in time I can go. We're already over 10 minutes, but let me try to answer one more question. Can a quiz be added into a WordPress app? Certainly. One of the main ideas of AppPresser, or building mobile apps with WordPress and AppPresser, is that anything that you could do inside of WordPress, you could do inside of this app. All it really is a web view that opens up a responsive design, right, inside of the app itself. And it utilizes PhoneGap for interacting with native device functionality like the camera or the geolocation or contacts or whatever, native functionality that you need to interact with, and integrating that with WordPress. So to answer your question, yes, you could use Gravity Forms to make a simple quiz and create a quick, little, easy-to-use quiz app with Gravity Forms, WordPress, and AppPress. I think I have spent all my time. Please follow me at bmess, at WebDev Studios, at AppPresser, and at BWAP. Hope to hear from you guys soon.